Hello and welcome to the 2020 preseason preview edition of the Big Branch Cincinnati Reds Facebook page video channel on YouTube. Before I go into the over 57 players and give you a preview of who and what and how's happening in spring training, I have a couple things non-spring training to get into. First of all, it's been an exciting off season for the Reds and other things going on. And some things are not so exciting, and it's a couple of the things I want to talk about now. Number one, another trade rumor reared its ugly head this morning. The Padres are trying to salary dump Will Myers, an underperforming guy that they paid a big contract to, trying to salary dump him to the Red Sox, and now all of a sudden the Reds are being brought in supposedly as a third party because the Red Sox really love Nick Senzel, and so do the Padres. And the Padres need a second baseman. Now, what this is going to amount to, I don't think anything. The last couple of weeks, and especially the last few days, intensely, the front office and Dick Williams and Nick Krall have both stated that Senzel is a long-term piece for the Reds and that the trade rumors were bunk, so on and so forth. They talked to Senzel about it, so I would think it'd be awfully odd that they would go ahead and trade him at this point, but we'll have to wait and see. But I would say don't even fall for that rumor. It's another one of those things that I really don't think somebody knows what they're talking about, but it has popped up on CBS and MLB Trade Rumors and some other outlets. So there's something, but I just don't think the Reds are involved. Number two, I watched yesterday some things on the Astros sign stealing deal, and also read a great article by Craig Calcaterra on NBC Sports, in which he states that Tom Verducci and a couple of the paid hacks, MLB hacks on MLB Network, have actually been making excuses for the commissioner. And if you go to NBC Sports, hit the baseball tab, look the article up, you'll see Craig Calcaterra doesn't pull any punches. And he's talking about how the commissioner has tried to absolve himself, blame it on everybody else, hold the Astros blameless, and really has botched it. This is a major scandal. No matter what anybody tells you, it's a major scandal. We used to steal signs even in Little League, Senior League, high school, you name it. But we did it legally. We didn't have monitors. We weren't beating on cans. We were watching people tipping pitches and that kind of thing, which is totally legal. This is major. It's going to have major implication. The Astros have not really seemed to actually say they were sorry. The only people that actually seemed to be sorry were the former Astros players that play on other teams. So the toxic culture looks like it's still there. The commissioner's just botching the whole thing. But I did want to say, as a result of the Craig Calcaterra deal yesterday on Wednesday, the commissioner came out about 5 hours later and had a press conference to try to put all this in perspective. And it just, again, he's passing the blame, passing the buck. No buck stops with him, so I have no idea how this is going to play out. But I do know Manfred's wounded as a commissioner. I think the owners are going to figure that out, and he's in a weakened position. And really, I hope they can get somebody that's a real commissioner in there, because Manfred sure is not doing his job very well. Okay, let's get on to the best part, the good part. The Cincinnati Reds. Spring training starts today officially for position players and workouts for everyone. A lot of people have been in there early. There's 57 people, so let me get right into it. First of all, we're going to look at the pitchers. There's some people that are locked, some people that aren't. This is my opinion and some other people's opinions. Things can change, as we know. Spring training, people can blow out arms. It's already started with some teams, and that could happen to us. But the nice thing about this year is the Reds have more depth and options than they've had since 2012. Fact. And that will help us in the long run. We won't have to be calling AAA and AA guys up. We'll have 4A replacements and big league replacements in the minors, and we'll get into that as we go along here. So let's start with the pitchers and what we've got going on here. The locks: Sonny Gray, Jose Castillo, Trevor Bauer, Anthony DeSclafani, and Wade Miley. Miley's a new pickup, lefty, not a hard thrower, but he does have some great breaking stuff. He is a very consistent player. I know some of you all, especially Chris, I know you're listening to this, don't like the term innings eater, but he is an innings eater extraordinaire. He also pitched for the Astros, pitched very well last year in the number 5 spot, and is rated the top number 5 man in the National League. So the Reds have got that going for them. Those guys are locks. Tyler Mahle, the number 5 last year, he does have one option left in the minors, and I'm sure that's going to be exercised, and he'll be stashed at Louisville getting steady work. And if anybody falters or gets hurt, we've got a guy that was a starter all year last year, not a great year, but a starter last year in the wings, ready to go. Never had that luxury before, so we're doing very, very well there. Okay, let's go to the relievers, the locks. Jose Iglesias, looking to have a better year, a bounce-back year. Even if he goes with his consistent record of 3 years prior to last year, and the average is there, he'll go from a 0.4 WAR, which he was last year, which is basically a AAA replacement player WAR, wins above replacement, when I say WAR, and a 4.16 ERA and 12 losses, a Reds record for a loser. Projections are looking at him for a WAR of about 1.7. We will take that. We will take that. Pedro Strop, free agent signing from the Cubs. Had an off year last year, but 5 consistent years before them. He had a 0 WAR, a 4.87 ERA. They're looking for him to have a 1.6 WAR and around a 3 ERA. We'll take that. If he has that 1.6 WAR, he's going to be a good 7th, 8th inning setup man. Michael Lorenzen, a lock, 2.4 WAR last year. Projections are showing him right at that this year. He's talking about 103-mile-an-hour fastball with his off-season training. We'll see if that works, but if he can come back with 75 projected innings at 2.92 ERA, we'll take that any day of the week. Another lock, left-hander, Amir Garrett. Garrett's put in some work. He had a decent year, 3.21 ERA. He really had a way better ERA than that, but he tailed off towards the end of the year. He's put in some extra work. He also has had some work with Kevin Body, who was the head guy at Driveline, who is now the head of pitchers for the Reds, especially in the minors and for pitcher development. Also, Caleb Cotham's worked with him, so they're looking for an improvement from Garrett to from a 1.2 WAR to a 1.7 to 2 WAR this year and 61 innings. Another guy, Robert Stevenson, came back last year, wasn't a super year, 3.76 ERA. He had a couple of times he got knocked around and that knocked his ERA up, but he did have a 0.8 ERA, or 8.8 WAR, I'm sorry, wins above replacement. And we're looking for 1 to 1.3 WAR and 61 innings out of Bob Steve. Another guy who has absolutely no options at all, but has a very live arm, Lucas Sims, will be in the bullpen. Also can be a spot starter, as we saw last year. He did a great job a couple of times. 4.60 ERA, looking at a WAR of 1.0 out of Mr. Sims. And we're looking at a 3.12 ERA in 54 innings. We would definitely take that. Those are the locks, which means we only have 2 more pitchers that can get in. Who we have going here is number 1, Cody Reed. Right now, he is the second lefty. We didn't have a second lefty last year, and it hurt us. It really hurt us. So much that the Reds went out and signed a couple of minor league contract lefties just to take a look. But as we know, Mr. Reed pitched very well last year, looked like he was going to break out, and then he had to go. He hurt his knee in the majors. They sent him to the minors. He never played after that. Had knee surgery, but the word is he looks great, just as good, if not better, than last year. He's got it together, so it'd be great to have a second lefty. If he comes back and has a good spring, he could be one of the other two guys left. Considering that he would be a lock Cody Reed, then we're looking at Joel Kuhnel. We watched him pitch last year, the big guy with the 99-mile-an-hour heater plus. I think he'll start out. He does have two options. He'll start out in AAA, but man, what great relief pitcher depth to have. We saw Kuhnel in action last year. He's going to be a closer of the future, I do believe. We also signed a right-hand, or actually didn't sign him. We traded for Jose de Leon. He used to be a #1 draft pick, #1 prospect. Did decent, but last year had arm problems, and he got traded for cash considerations from the Marlins to the Reds. He's looking to come back good in camp. If he doesn't, or if he's mediocre, he does have one option left, so we can stash him in AAA. Jesse Biddle, he was a lefty that we signed. He also has one option. Last year he had a 1.2 WAR, or no, year before last, I'm sorry. Interesting story here. He had a 1.2 WAR, a 3.11 ERA in 61 innings with the Braves. Was one of their top prospects, was doing great. Then last year, arm problems, they had to DFA him, and away he went. If Biddle comes into camp, it's going to be between him and Cody Reed for that second lefty spot. He could sneak in there. So keep an eye on Mr. Biddle. Another guy that has one option left who is signed to an extension was Matt Bowman. Again, he has one option left. I would not be surprised if he started out in AAA. We've seen Bowman pitch. He's a decent reliever. We're good. So there you are. Then we have some other people that the Reds signed or have on hand. Could want to be contenders. We'll start with David Carpenter. Very interesting story. He's pitched with 3 teams that very well. Had a terrible season last year. Arm problems and everything else. He went to Driveline, and I posted a video of him over the winter. He went to Driveline, was hitting 94, looked great, folks. So I wouldn't be surprised. He signed a minor league contract. If he stays with the Reds and they stash him in AAA, if he looks decent. If he doesn't, then he'll be gone at the end of the spring training. We have Nate Jones, Northern Kentucky boy, kind of a Scooter Jeanette esque pickup. He has the stuff, but he's had a couple of bad years, had some injuries, but he's back. He's coming back. Interesting to see what will happen to him. R.J. Alaniz, Tyler Thornburg, don't have much hope with them. The other lefty in camp who also does have one minor league option left, Brooks Raley, but I just don't see him doing anything. He had a 4+ ERA in Korean baseball. Japan is supposed to be approximately close to AAA for the United States. That would make Korea a single-A, double-A type competition. And he had over a 4-point ERA in Korea over a 5-year average. Don't see much there. Justin Schaefer, again, we traded nobody for him with the Toronto Blue Jays. Decent pitcher. He had a .4 WAR, 3.86 ERA with 62 innings with the Blue Jays. Just a decent, nothing spectacular there. And then we also have a couple of people that are going to be in camp that are going to definitely go back to the minors. That are just there to get some experience. And #1 is Nick Lodolo, our #1 prospect, and also he just came up screaming through the minor leagues last year. So he's set. Many project him to make his major league debut later this year, or at worst after breaking camp next year. And we do have 2 free agent starters on the staff this year. I believe that's Bauer and DeSclafani. So that would be great news if Lodolo goes to AA and AAA and just knocks his socks off. Alex Powers, great reliever, nothing overpowering, but he has a sub-2 ERA through AA and AAA. As a matter of fact, his ERA went down a couple of hundred points when he went from AA to AAA Louisville last year. So you got to keep your eyes on. Again, we have a couple of very good relievers coming on. Field positions, let's go over those quickly. Locks, Tucker and Kurt Casale at catcher. First base, Votto. Second base, Moose Moustakas. Galvis at shortstop, Suarez, who is taking fielding, not throwing, but fielding at third base and hitting left-handed with a little bit of assist on his surgically repaired right shoulder. They're bringing him along slowly, but they do look for him to be in the lineup on opening day. So also your utility player is going to be Farmer, who right now is the projected backup shortstop, backup catcher. He can play any infield position, so he looks like a lock. I have 3 outfielders locked right now: Castellanos, Shogo Akiyama, Nick Senzel. So we're going to have a grand total of 13 players. And right there, we have 10 of them. So we have 3 more players to choose from. In the outfield, and some people that I look at as the top guys for at least 2 of the 3 positions. Again, Aristides Aquino, who also does have an option left for minor league. Phil Irvin, Derek Dietrich, who the Reds just re-signed, and Winker. No, I did not have Winker in the outfield, the big 4, as a lot of people are calling it. Winker does have an option. He may get stashed in AAA. It could happen. It just depends on how everything shakes out and who's playing where. Aquino the same way. The only true shortstop backup we have is Alex Blandino. He can play all over the infield, and he is our best backup shortstop option. But again, it's going to be a dogfight, folks, and we got plenty of people fighting for each position. After Aquino, we have Travis Jankowski, came over from the Padres in a trade for cash. Billy Hamilton bat, Billy Hamilton speed. He can play all 3 outfield positions, but just don't see anything happening here. He looks like good trade bait. Somebody's going to need a bench or a multiple position outfielder. I think the Reds can get a few prospects and build up the farm system with him, but we signed him to an actual contract for whatever reason. We have Mark Payton, our Rule 5 pick, tore up AAA. Very, very good outfielder, but that was AAA. We'll see how he goes, but if he does not stay on the 26-man up one this year from 25 traditionally, on the 26-man roster, the Reds have to offer him back to his team and pay him to take him back. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening with him. Like the guy, but we can't keep him. Then we have our old buddy Scott Schebler. Hit .216 at AAA. It was terrible last year, even in AAA. After he was sent down, it was terrible with the Reds before he got sent down. But he did hurt his shoulder. He's had shoulder surgery. Word is he looks pretty good. So we'll have to see what happens there. Again, Schebler would be a great guy to get a couple of prospects for with somebody that needs a multiple position outfielder. And if he has a good spring, if he doesn't stick with the Reds, we definitely could do some trading with him, and we have a whole lot of those people. Another guy that's in there, Tyler Stevenson, might have a shot. He is our 3rd catcher technically on the 40-man. This guy was a number 1 pick, was supposed to be the second coming of Johnny Bench, was so-so through single A, high A, double A. Last year, Tyler Stevenson broke out. He had a great year and was called up to AAA. He also played Arizona Fall League ball, which is elite prospect ball. And at AA, he hit .285 with Chattanooga, good power. Then he went to and had a great end of the season. Then he went to the Arizona Fall League and hit .347 with great power. He was one of the top hitters there of all the top prospects of all the teams in baseball. So it looks like he's coming on. He probably will be on the 26-man next year. So somebody's going to have to shake out in the Casale Tyler in the Casale Tucker platoon system there. So got somebody breathing there. Some other people are going to be there, but they're going to go back to the minors and not really contenders. Jonathan India are one of our top prospects, third baseman. Jose Israel Garcia, a cheap $2 million signing off the Cuban national team. He's had a bad 3 years, but last year he started putting it all together. Great fielder, and he's got his bat coming around. Looks like the bat tool's increasing, so looks like we may have somebody coming through here, but just not this year. Chris Oakey, a catcher that we picked in the second round, he was supposed to have been excellent. He's really kind of languished in the minors and still has not had a better than a 240 hitting. Decent, consistent catcher defensively, but that's about it. Francisco Pena is another catcher that we signed as filler, 200 hitter. Don't even know what we signed him for, but he's depth at AA or AAA. Alfredo Rodriguez, one of the last holdovers, the Walt Jocketty fiasco years. Jocketty signed him to a $7 million contract. The guy's never hit over 205. Very flashy, very good shortstop defensively. Terrible hitter. And sometimes he's so flashy he makes errors on the easy balls when he gets the hard stuff that nobody else can get. So I just think that's $7 million wasted dollars. He's not going to do anything. So he'll be back down in the minors. Stuart Fairchild, center fielder, very good prospect. He hit 389 in the Arizona Fall League, hit 285 in AA. He did very, very, very well. Him and Tyler Stevenson both last year for Chattanooga in AA and in the Arizona Fall League. Not this year. Maybe next year. Another guy that we signed, Boog Powell Jr., those of us who are as old as I am, or those of you who are as old as I am, remember Daddy was the big guy. He's not. He's a very fast center fielder. He can play all the infield positions. But hey, last year for Oakland, he hit 167 in a month and a half of action. In AAA, he hit 213. So I don't see anything there. And we signed back Blake Trahan, our Raging Cajun. He's a shortstop and basic infielder. I think he'll be back with the Reds in AAA. Okay, so I just wanted to run over a few things as far as who we have and what we have going on in the field. We have Barnhart and Casale, Votto, Moose, Galvis, Suarez, Farmer, Castellanos, Akiyama, Senzel, and Irvin look to be projected locks. That's 11 players. So we have two field players left to choose from. Aquino, who has an option, Dietrich, who does not, Winker, who has an option, Jankowski, who is signed and doesn't matter, Peyton, who's the Rule 5 guy, but he cannot go down. I think he's going back to his original team. Schebler, Davidson. Matt Davidson is another guy that we signed. For power hitting, first baseman, third baseman in AAA, does very well, but we pretty much have first and third base locked up, so I don't see any room for him. Also, Stevenson, the catcher, he has 3 options left. He should end up in AAA. Jose Garcia and Pastorod, Alfredo Rodriguez, Stuart Fairchild, Boog Powell, and Blake Trahan back down. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, whether the Reds keep 5 outfielders, 4 outfielders, 6 outfielders. They also can declare Mikey Biceps, also known as Mike Lorenzen. They can declare him a field player, and that would give us an extra pitcher, technically a 14th pitcher. And there's only actually 3 guys in all of baseball that qualify for the 2-way exemption this year. Lorenzen is one of those 3. So there's a little option going on there. Actually, it looks like it's going to be a great season, exciting season. We have tons of options. We have tons of depth, and I think that's going to be a huge difference. Somebody gets hurt, it's not we're going to have to go to a double A or a triple A guy. We at least have a 4A solid guy slash major league starter caliber waiting in the wings at most every position. So you just gotta be thankful that the Reds have set that up. And in concluding, if this Nick Senzel thing actually would come to fruition, the only thing I can say is every good thing I've said about the front office this year, who I've been very critical of in the past, I'm going to take it all back if they trade Senzel away for absolutely nothing. But we'll see over the next few days. But I'll be back in a few weeks when we get some games started and we have some battles going on. And I'll have roundup so that we can see how things are shaking out and maybe take a look at opening day rosters and go from there. Well, folks, I hope all of you all have a great and wonderful week ahead. Games will be starting in 5 days. Today's the first day of actual workouts. So let's have fun, and I'll see you all in just a few weeks. And this, as Joe Nux always say, this is the old left-hander rounding third and heading for home.